Becoming pop stars. Becoming upstarts.
Behind every property transaction is a negotiation, but more importantly, a state of mind. Today, we explore the psychological layer of real estate, the part that isn't listed on a brochure, but quietly determines outcomes. Because buyers don't just evaluate property, they manage stress, uncertainty, and our agent today has expertise to help them do just that. Welcome to Meet the Agent podcast. I'm Wendy Claire of Juge Interiors. Today, meet Kristan Johnson of Johnson Property Co. Welcome, Kristan. Thank you for joining us.
Wendy, thank you for having me.
Let's dive in. How would you introduce yourself? Tell us, who is Kristan?
So I think I'd probably introduce myself as a relatively down-to-earth, likable guy that wants to really help people. That ultimately, my core philosophy is just helping people to buy property well.
Oh, that's nice. That's simple, right? And that's really what it comes down to, huh? Just helping people. I love that. So I'm going to try to dig in a little bit deeper then. What do you love doing then when you're not helping people buy a property?
As you know, real estate is kind of 24/7. So there isn't much downtime, but when I don't have tons of hobbies, I just want to spend time with my family. For me, when I'm not at work, I've got an 8-month-old and I've got a 3.5-year-old, actually 9-month-old now, and a 3.5-year-old. I want to spend time with them. And that might be just hanging out, watching a movie or going to the park and just running around. So yeah, really just family when I'm not in the grind of real estate.
That's nice.
And I think I find that I love what I do. Like I really love what I do for work. So I don't need to have tons of other hobbies because I'm kind of doing the cliche thing of living my passion.
That's very good. So, we have a favorite question. What music star or song would most fit your style or personality or vibe?
So there's a song that my wife and I have that has been a running, I don't know if it's a joke, but it's a running theme since we met, and it's 50 Cent's Candy Shop.
Rock up in the suit, high fade, fresh jawline, clipboard contract, smile sitting borderline. You're looking for a place, I'm looking for your budget. You show me your approvals, I show you where to touch it. Hey! Action on a Saturday, I'm whispering your limit. You say you wanna win it, I say you gotta spin it. You like my little brochure, I like your little stance. You circle the inspection, I circle you in red pen dance. Take you to the off-market, baby, have a little tour. Open up the floor plan, show you what it's really for. You say you want a bargain, I can get you so much more. Let me be your buyer's agent, I'll secure that candy store.
It's a song that we were joking about walking down the aisle to. It's a song that whenever we are asked to request a song, it's the song that we are always put forward. So that'd have to be a 50 Cent Candy Shop.
Yeah, it's a fun song. It's a bit of a banger, isn't it? I've got good memories of that song. So what is it about that song?
The themes are probably less appropriate as I get older and I've got kids. But it's such a fun song, and it's got a really a good thumping beat throughout, and it's just good fun.
Right. Okay, cool. So do you feel like that's a little bit of your vibe with clients as well, that you kind of like to just, make it a little bit of fun too? Is there some parallel there, or am I reading too much into that?
I think I'm a bit of a chameleon when it comes to clients. So every client is so different. Some clients we have, I feel like they're my best mate, and we're constantly in a level of banter, and we're making jokes. Other clients just are so nervous or are so analytical. They just need someone who can be that Sherpa through the journey. So really for us, it's not about, yes, I have a personality, but it's about really trying to mold that to make sure that the client gets the care and the attention that they need throughout that journey. So it's less about me being me, and it's more about adapting to the client and making sure they feel really listened to and cared for throughout.
Right. That's interesting. So it's more about them being them and you kind of getting them and really working with their kind of style and vibe. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I think as clients come to us because they need help, and we as buyers agents have a real toolkit of things that we can help them with. But most of the time, especially with first home buyers and people that are relatively new to buying, they need someone who can say, "Listen, I understand," and that might be that they need me to be more friendly and jokey, or they might need me to be more analytical, and I'll just really lean into what helps them feel like their journey is and that path to buying is as smooth as possible.
Yeah. Wow. So where did you get these skills? I mean, that's very empathetic, which I really like. And I'm curious to know, like, can you tell us a little bit about what led you into real estate as a buyer's agent? What's your background and how have you got to this place and this spot where you're really helping people in that way?
Yeah, great question. So I don't think I took the traditional, well, I didn't take the traditional pathway into real estate.
What is the traditional pathway, by the way?
I don't actually know if there is one. It seems to be
Okay.
kind of a fail forward, but I didn't get into real estate until sort of mid-30s.
Yeah.
Before that, I'd taken a couple of iterations and a couple of turns, but I left school and became a mental health nurse for a time. I did the kind of Australian dream thing. I went to school, I then left school, got a job, and then I went and bought a house. Unfortunately, that journey wasn't as smooth as what it should have been, and I ended up buying a pretty crappy investment in the grand scheme of things.
Right.
I didn't know how to negotiate, and yeah, through that, I kind of sparked a passion for property.
Mm. And then how did that end up going to being a buyer's agent?
Yeah, so that from there, I kind of felt calling to something more entrepreneurial, and so I was working in mental health nursing for a long time, and then I got into it. I got offered a job in selling local newspaper ads. From there, that skill of sales and negotiation kind of built, and that passion for property continued. So I kind of became a pseudo buyer's agent for friends and family. I was always the guy that was
Right.
involved in conversations around property, and I was doing what a buyer's agent does. I just didn't know that you could do it as a career path.
How interesting.
Maybe through that, I kind of refined my skill set and the way that you articulate to agents, and I learned how to sell and negotiate a lot more through that. And then in doing that, I ran into a buyer's agent who ended up becoming a really good friend of mine up in Newcastle, who showed me how to go about becoming a real estate agent, then buyer's agent, and getting my license. And that's how Johnson Property Co. was kind of formed and came about.
Fantastic. So tell me, how some of these mental health nursing background skills have made a difference for you right now in your career and in your work. I mean, there's obviously a whole lot that we have to talk about, from negotiation to de-escalation. So much, I don't even know where to jump in, but you're the one in the field. So yeah, how does this interplay, the mental health and the actual buying of houses? Give me some
We all know
examples if you like.
most real estate agents are crazy, right? No, no. I think it's really about the
True.
emotional intelligence. I think it's when you're buying a house, it's such an emotional journey. Whether it's your first house or it's your third house, most people don't do this regularly. So
No.
having someone who understands and has the EQ or the emotional intelligence to be able to understand the emotional roller coaster that clients are going to go through. Yes, it's all well and good to be able to go on and negotiate a great deal, but if you can't help the clients manage their emotions throughout that, it's really going to leave them feeling this high and low and almost like a roller coaster. So I feel like the mental health nursing background and that kind of empathetic, nurturing side really helps clients and really helps me to Sherpa them or handhold them through what is a really stressful time.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, that's interesting. So do you want to tell me like an example that comes to mind? I mean, obviously no client names and
Yeah.
whatever works for you, but yeah, I'd love to hear some situations of how
Yeah.
that
So
played out.
I think that there's lots of them, but there's one that comes to mind. They bought a house in Ashfield. Midway through the journey, they said to us, I work with a number of buyers agents in our office. They said to myself and my colleague, listen, we're so glad that we got to work with you, because we used to leave a property, an inspection, and just go home and kind of spiral and not really know whether it was a good property, whether it was great, good, bad, or indifferent. Now we get to jump on a phone call with you and we can just almost debrief around the property. And
Right.
it's refreshing to have someone who understands the nuance of and can decode the real estate agent's kind of speak in a way that the average buyer can understand.
Right. But yeah,
So I
I,
think,
I think what you're saying here too is that simple thing of being able to talk it out with someone, like having a counselor or a therapist can be just so good, even if they barely say anything, but just having that listening ear and then someone at the end who kind of hones in on the underlying issue or something like that that you couldn't get at because you're overwhelmed with all of these different thoughts and feelings. So you're in a sense almost like that listening ear that they can talk it out to and then
yeah,
sort of zone in on where to next and how do we deal with this. Wow.
yeah, definitely. And I think even before you start looking at properties, most clients spend so long searching before they actually identify what they really want. And we spend a lot of time with them right at the front to really, especially when there's two parties, a husband and wife or partners, or we've got currently working with sisters that are buying. While you assume the other party has similar interests to what you do or similar goals, without almost doing we call it a deep dive session, but without doing that at the start, we end up spending time almost in conflict with one party that wants bigger bedroom, the other one wants bigger living room. So we do this deep dive, which is kind of like a counseling session where we get them really clear about what they're looking for before we even start searching, so that we're not wasting precious time and energy searching for the wrong thing.
Yeah, interesting. Or making the wrong decision because one person's had the stronger voice, the kind of stronghold over the decision, and then later it's all a disaster because the other person's needs haven't really been met. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow.
Mm.
Okay. And what about managing that process for you? Like, do you have a person that you go to kind of debrief and go, oh my God? I think I know that's interesting. Like thinking about this parallel of like the agent as counselor. Counselors, from what I know, I'm not a counselor either, but they turn to another counselor, like for professional counseling for counselors. Do you have a go-to bud or how do you manage that roller coaster?
I think,
Or does your wife got that?
yeah, my lovely wife Sophie gets to bear the brunt of it. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm fortunate to have a really great team of other buyers agents that work
Right.
here. So my colleague Ben is always someone who understands. Like it's good to have someone who understands the highs and lows of real estate that you can talk with. And we've got a new buyers agent, Jaden, just starting with us as well. So the having a team environment, I think, is so important to be able to, because when we're making decisions in an echo chamber, it's really hard to understand if you're making the right decision. Having a number of other people who have a common interest and a common goal allows you to make sure that you're just split testing ideas and you're not just making decisions that feel right but are actually in the client's best interest.
Yeah, right. And kind of we can, I think one or the other lend more to acting on the head or the heart, right? So you've got that team around you to kind of balance out one or the other and yeah, be the devil's advocate. Well, interesting. Very true. Okay, so if I buy in the future, I'm only going to find a buyer's agent who's got a team, I think. There's a lot of flyers out there, aren't there? So that's a very interesting point.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? I think you've got to choose your path and what you want to do. But for me, business is a lonely journey anyway. So finding people that align with you allows you to have that support, but it also allows me to go, as we were talking about off air, I went away for 4 days over the weekend. And I had people that could still look at properties for clients and make sure that the common objective, which is to buy our clients amazing houses, could still continue. So when you're key man dependent and the business relies solely on you, it becomes really difficult to detach.
Yeah, right. And I can imagine keeping that stress down for you and everyone is just going to be so much better in the long term. I learned a lot from our episode we had on boundaries and burnout with Sky, where she sort of talked a bit about that. Just when you have so many balls that you're juggling, the stress can really warp your decision making, can't it? Interesting.
Definitely.
Yeah. That all sounds very, very helpful and important. I'm really interested when you mentioned to us, again, off air in our discussions, you mentioned de-escalation and negotiation skills. And I've not yet had anyone really dive into that on our podcast. Particularly first, I'm curious to know your thoughts and techniques about de-escalation, because I've seen some videos going around on socials where people are starting to talk about these underquoting and so forth. And really, there is a time and a place to be very frank and attack the issues, but it seemed to me there's a bit of escalating happening and a little bit of confrontation. And I can imagine that frontline battlefield of auctions must get very tense. It's something they want to do is escalate the price, isn't it? I mean, I joked with one of our selling agents that there could be a motto for auctions for selling agents. Well, that escalated quickly. You know, our office motto is, well, that escalated quickly. So as buyers agents, are you wanting to de-escalate to perhaps keep that price from escalating as well?
There's a couple of pieces there. Obviously, the selling agents have a job to do. Their job is to try and get the highest price for their vendor. And I think that once buyers understand that and they start to really understand that sales agents are not there to, yes, they're there to help buyers get to a point where they can maximize the vendor or the owner's profits. Us as buyers and buyers agents need to realize that guide prices are completely rubbish and we need to go and do our own due diligence. If we can move away from what the agent is saying the price is and we can go, okay, let's look at 3-bedroom house in Marrickville in the inner west where I am, 3-bedroom house in Marrickville, the price for the last 3 on the street was X. Okay, that means that plus or minus that number, this property should be worth around that price. Now then we go, okay, now we've got some tangible facts that we can work with and we can start to anchor our negotiations in. Once you start to get to the real understanding of where value is and move away from the guide price being this almost made up number.
Right, a kind of wish list number?
Yeah, well, so I think that the guide price becomes so low compared to where the property might end up that
okay, it's the opposite.
It ends up causing this frustration in buyers' minds because a property is guided at 2 million, sells for 2.4, then they feel like the agent has slighted them. And in times there are, as we know, there are bad actors, but I feel like most agents are trying to get to maximize the sale price for their vendor, and they're trying to do their job.
Okay, I hear you. It's actually the opposite. It's more that for a lot of people, the price guide is more like clickbait, and then the buyers get very frustrated when it's not what they expected.
Exactly.
Okay.
And when we start to go, okay, let's detach the guide price from the property and let's go, okay, where do the comparable sales and where does the data sit? We can start to move and take action from a place of empowerment rather than listening to the agent and then getting frustrated with the agent. They're not in alignment with what you're trying to do. Yes, we want to buy a house.
Right.
Yes, they want to sell a house, but ultimately we need to figure out how can we get to the data in without the sale of or without the guide price being kind of a factor.
Right. So kind of taking that off the table is like, that's just a distraction. That's a red herring. We're not going to get into that discussion about it. We're not going to get shaken by it. You're kind of changing the topic in a sense, are you?
Yeah, well, you're not changing the topic. We're just doing our own preparation. So we're
Yeah.
making sure that we come into it with all the facts, and then you can make decisions without emotion. Once you start to take the emotion out of the decision, then it becomes a much more clear binary yes or no. And we always say to clients, if you're buying an investment property, it's very much a yes or no decision. Is this a good investment? Yes or no. If you're buying somewhere to live, there's probably a component of maybe 2 to 3% that we would allow for an emotional cost above where we see a fair value. And that's kind of we're going to see our kids grow up in this house, therefore we're okay paying a little bit more. And our job is to help them come to those numbers logically with data and with our market knowledge on that street by street, suburb by suburb basis.
And these discussions about price guides, the negotiation side of it, the client's not there with you. That's you and the selling agent one-on-one, is it? So you're not having to pre-brief that client to control their emotions. Kristan's not turning around and going, take a Valium.
Yeah, no. And
you must want to say that to the selling agent sometimes.
If we're in an auction scenario, then the client is there, and they're going to be there. There is going to be some stress there, but we will always make sure that we have a really clear plan with our clients before. So there's no, we're just going to bid another $10,000 more. We've made a decision on a number days in advance. We've done a full due diligence. We've done a full comparable evaluation, and we know where we would be comfortable buying it. And our client has given us an indication of, or a clear indication that their max price is whatever it is. Say it's $2 million. If we get onto the auction floor and we hit that number, I will just say to the auctioneer, my client's instructions are to not proceed beyond this point. And that's it. So that's, there's not no emotion, but there's a lot less emotion when you go into it with a really clear plan in place.
Yeah, I like that. So, yeah, it's setting really simple, clear boundaries that in that heat of the moment, you can just fall back on and just go, well, this is the way we rock and roll. That's it. We're at that point. I was at an auction once, and the client seemed very relaxed, but I could see the buyer's agent's neck got redder and redder and redder and redder. But I must compliment them, though. They got the deal. They won the moment, and it was only the skin of his neck that portrayed the stress. So I guess,
everyone has a tell. And what I would say to clients that are not using a buyer's agent, if there's an auction coming up that you're going to bid at, go and spend the few weekends before going to as many auctions as you can. The more you can watch, the more you realize that there is a pretty common cadence that most auctions will follow. And the more that you understand how that flows, the less stress that you will feel. Yes, you're spending a lot of money and it feels like a really daunting task, but the more times you can be through that and watch that, the less it'll start to affect you when it comes to auction day.
Right. Yeah, because you've seen it. It's not scary new territory. It does remind me, though, in a wonderful way, of something I just came across in social media. A buyer's agent had as their social media log line. It said, "Call me before you make a very expensive decision." And I thought, yeah, that's true, right? Because a lot of people haven't done that homework and they're really jumping in the deep end, and you're there with that experience so that you don't make expensive mistakes.
We pay money to go to a dentist when we go to sell a car, but people go into this most expensive decision-making process and try to do it alone. I know it's my job to say that as a buyer's agent, but I just feel like it's mad that we would try to negotiate with trained professionals when we are not trained or expected to know how to do that.
Yeah, well, you yourself were saying you from personal experience had made a mistake. You bought a home that turned out to be the wrong decision. And I bet a lot of people can relate to that. So that was a really good example from your personal life. Can you tell us another example from your experience?
I always say to clients, auctions, I always lean on the Mike Tyson quote. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And I think that most auctions are very much like that. You can go in with the most best laid plan. You just don't know who is going to be there on the day, who's going to be bidding against you, or how it's going to play out. I guess a memorable auction would be a time that I actually bid against myself, essentially double bid to win an auction for a client.
Oh, you deliberately did that. You're not kind of confessing to, oops, I was a newbie and I've just bid against myself.
It was a deliberate, intentional action. So we're very good at being able to read other parties. And I could tell that the person that we were bidding against was already overstretched. He'd left the auction floor to talk to his partner and come back. So he was at a point where he was stretched. We were going up in $5,000 increments, and my client had a hard stop, 2,450,000. We got to 2,445,000 as my bid, and I realized that if they would have bid the next bid, they would get to our max before us. So I bid my bid, and then I realized on the fly and did another $5,000 bid, essentially. So I went 5,000, then another 5,000 almost instantly. And it was enough to almost portray this level of kind of, we have so much money and we're going to keep bidding until we buy this property. It was enough to rattle that potential buyer and have them stop bidding. Little did they know that it was actually our last bid. So I'd spent every cent that my client had written down on a piece of paper that was in my pocket, but was able to buy the property for them at a price that we still thought was an amazing deal.
Wow.
So it was, and I think that goes to the experience of having a trained professional there. Most people would have been $5,000 short, and then someone would have bid to that point, and then the property would have sold for what their maximum budget was, and then they would have felt like what ifs. So our job is to make sure that we can take those what ifs away for them.
Right. So what you did sort of intimidated them out of the game, and you got the deal, even though you, in a sense, you might think you'd spent a little bit more, but it was likely it would have gone against you anyway. So it was like a smart gamble at that 11th hour, in that moment of absolute end game.
Yeah, we got to our maximum number that my client had already informed me before anyone else could. And I think that's a really important takeaway. If you're getting close to your maximum price, sometimes it's better to get there before someone else does, because if you were going to spend, let's say you had a hard cap at $1 million and someone else buys the property for exactly $1 million, you're going to feel really frustrated that you didn't get there first. So it's better to get to that number and know that either you buy it or you don't, but you gave it everything, rather than someone else getting to that number and then buying it for that price.
Yeah, because they might have a hard cap at that too, right? And as you said, it's the first one that got there who's actually got the contract. Interesting.
Exactly.
It's just been, a really fantastic discussion. Very interesting. This is one of these episodes where I feel like I want to replay, and I will, but maybe, people listening too, and just, re-listen again and reflect on some of these things, because sometimes we chat a lot, but there's really big ideas that, are worth mulling around for a little longer.
Well, not everyone needs a buyer's agent, but I would encourage everyone who is looking at buying to at least explore the opportunity. Most people go into buying a property with this preconceived notion of how it will be. Get some advice, even free advice from a buyer's agent to start with, just to make sure that what you're looking for is achievable, and to help you get somewhat set on the right path.
Take it to the off market, baby, have a little tour. Open up the floor plan, show you what it's really for.
Well, that has been really helpful. I thank you so much, Kristan. And thank you everyone for listening in. Join us next week for another episode of Meet the Agent podcast.
Let me be your buyer's agent. I'll secure that candy store. Candy store.